you endorsed Tiffany for mayor because I know it's on her, I think her IG or TikTok, one of the two.
Yeah. Hi, I am Trustee Jason House for the Village of Dolton, and I'm here to give my support and endorsement for Trustee Tiffany Henyard, who is the Democratic nominee for the mayor in the Village of Dolton. So I had actually known her for many years prior as well.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the channel. My name is Nate the Lawyer, and I am here with Trustee Jason House of Dolton, Illinois. You guys know we've been covering Dolton for a long time, and this story is crazy. Let me first just name some of the people who have done Pink Book Lessons.
Yes.
O'Shea Jackson. Hannibal. Oh my God, Hannibal doing some great work.
He really is hungry.
Yes. Actual Justice Warrior. And it's great to see that, because this I always say this is like a YouTube story. It started off on YouTube and on these video platforms, and then people started sharing it. And now the national media has picked up on that.
Tiffany Henyard.
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 Tiffany Henyard, the mayor of Dolton, Illinois.
So how does it feel to kind of just be on that national stage now with this crazy mayor?
It's definitely different than what was expected. Myself, my other colleagues on the board, so I always want to make sure I recognize the colleagues that work really, really hard with me. Trustee Kiana Belcher, Trustee Brittany Norwood, Trustee Tammy Brown, former Trustee Edward Steve. We have a few other former trustees, Valeria Stubbs, all pulling together because it's been a collective effort. We're a tight-knit community of people that love on each other. So this is surprising, I would say, in terms of what the exposure that we've gotten. It's unfortunate because of why we've gotten this level of attention, but it also is going to show the resiliency of Dolton and the residents and the people and how strong we are. So Dolton is about 5 miles in radius. It really is, I would say, maybe about a 5 to 10 minute drive from the south side of Chicago. So it takes you maybe 25, 30 minutes to get downtown Chicago. But we are really on the outskirts of the city, which gives us great opportunities. A lot of people come to Dolton because they want to have the small community feel and still access to the large city. And we're positioned perfectly for residents and for people to do that. You say, how was it before the Henyard administration?
Yeah,
there were challenges in there before. Definitely nothing to this degree. We have to remember that Mayor Henyard was Trustee Henyard for 8 years prior. So she was also a member of the board. And she went back and forth with the previous mayor. And I think a lot of the reason that people, and I have to say myself, and at the time included, were supporting her was she was a big advocate for people speaking out and doing the right thing and really challenged the former mayor on many issues.
Why you just not sending us a package at 4:46? I got that today. So that's my other issue. So we didn't even have time to digest what it is you're stating here. But yeah, y'all throw it in front of us and get upset when we go against what you're saying, but we don't even know because we didn't read it. You just sent it to us. So why? We talked about all this. We're supposed to get better, but y'all study doing the same thing. Like, okay, trustees, we need y'all to vote on it now. Okay, we're going to send it to y'all right before the board meeting. I know y'all didn't read it, but we need y'all to just vote yes. No, it don't work that way. Y'all supposed to give us stuff on Thursday so we can digest it, understand it, and come up with other options.
Never have a question. I tell y'all all the time, ask us. But y'all get here and we make the people stay here for hours. For what?
We just got the warrant list today at 2 o'clock, 2:30.
Okay.
2:30.
I see it's not gonna go nowhere. So what else?
Whoever's coming, I hope Sam Brown, you hopefully you get the warrant list before 2:30, the day of the day of voting. You're supposed to get it Thursday last week. We got it today at 2:30.
Okay. Anything else, Trustee?
Mayor, that is not what I just said to you. Stop deflecting. Listen to what I'm stating. I'm talking about why is it right now? Y'all giving it to us right now. Again, right before a board meeting when y'all knew you don't want to give a response. That's what I'm talking about with mayor leadership. When you supposed to respond and say, Trustee, I think we should raise it. I think we should not. I think we should go this route. You never give any opinion because you don't want to be held accountable for anything. I don't like that. So now you put back on the board, but you never say what you think.
It's not on the packet, so for all of the information you guys hide from the board, it's not been transparent. So I still do not know it. And every time we ask questions about what's the deficit, what is the number, we get deflection, we get spin. And I know you love to do this, we get a dance. So I'm asking again, what's the for Ansel and Glean?
Trustee, you had opportunity to read the agenda, reach out, find out what the number is, and be prepared for your meeting. So for you to wait for me to give you the number, you should.
So to see what's come up now it's like a 180. It's complete hypocrisy, and it really is insulting to many residents. And as we see the way things are carrying out, it's becoming offensive to America.
You endorsed Tiffany for mayor because I know it's on her I think her IG or TikTok, one of the two.
Yeah. Hi, I am Trustee Jason House for the Village of Dolton, and I'm here to give my support and endorsement for Trustee Tiffany Henyard, who is the Democratic nominee for the mayor in the Village of Dolton. Tiffany has been an active trustee and the advocate for the people for the past 8 years and has championed the term the People's Trustee because of her activities that she's done with the residents for the Village of Dolton. So everybody, please join me by punching 1 for Tiffany Henyard on April 6th to be your next mayor in the Village of Dolton. Thank you. So I had actually known her for many years prior as well. I've known her from prior to her being elected as a trustee in 2013. I probably knew her since about 2010, 2011. And in that history, I had the opportunity to know her, watch her as she kind of evolved, and she evolved as an advocate. That's really how she came through the ranks. So when we come up to the election, there's a few things that I think in the board meetings, I really try to keep my composure and decorum, because that's one of the biggest things that our residents are looking for. Like, they look at all of us. This is who's representing us, and I'm trying to make sure that we are demonstrating that just because one person is kind of acting out, that doesn't mean all of us act that way.
Of course, yeah.
However, when she makes comments about her comments, I won by 82% of the vote. That's a complete exaggeration. She says that she carried myself and Trustee Kiana Belcher. So I do want to kind of highlight that because if she carried me, she would not have been begging for my endorsement on her in her video. That was a big ploy. I was asked to run for mayor, and at that time, I elected against it. And when you look at the real election in Dolton, so Dolton actually has a Democratic primary. We're largely a Democratic community.
Yeah, so whoever wins that really wins the mayoralship.
Yes. So when you look at the numbers of the real election was on February 21st of the same year. Mm-hmm. During that election, she won by 4%. She beat out the former mayor. She got the lowest vote total of any mayor that ever won the Democratic primary.
Oh, wow.
And so when I pulled the numbers up. She got 1,001 votes. The former mayor, who had a stroke a month prior, lost by 120 votes. He got 888 votes. Tiffany, who everybody knew she was was a little naive, and she would even admit that, okay, well, no, I got some things I'm going to learn, but I'm going to work with the team. That was the sales pitch throughout the whole campaign. Oh, well, I'm going to work with everybody. We're going to get this done. I understand I got some things to learn. I went out to many residents and told them, look, she's going to work with us. We all know her the sales pitch was, give me a chance. That was really said many times by myself, Trustee Belcher, trying to advocate for it. And if you look at the election results of what I'm going to say is the real election, the Democratic primary, and every trustee got more votes than the mayor did in that election. Clerk Allison Keys got 1,470 votes. I'll repeat again, Tiffany had 1,001 votes.
Nobody hates on the clerk.
I received the next highest, 1,357 votes. Trustee Brittany Norwood, 1,140 votes. Trustee Belcher, 1,065 votes. All more votes than the mayor did. There were even 2 candidates that lost for trustee that got more votes than she did during that election. Yet, when we come, you hear 82%. That's because we went that was during the general election, where she, as a Democrat in a completely Democratic community, went against an independent. Personally, I feel like 82% is a low number for her. But when you do the semantics and you want to pick, and if we talk about that 82%, that does not speak to the 55% of people that voted to recall her 1 year later.
So you guys have the recall election. You guys recall her, and this was like when her first year in office, right? It's like she goes for the recall, right? Or was it the second year in office?
It was June of the following year.
Okay, all right.
So we're talking maybe about 15 to 18 months in is when the election itself happened. Leading up to that, it was placed on the ballot in December 21. She was voted in May.
All right.
Now to campaign 2022. In a recall fight in Chicago's south suburbs, people in the village of Dolton voted to kick the mayor out of office. But as CBS 2's Jermont Terry reports, the mayor is not going anywhere for now.
Congratulations, Madam Mayor.
Just over a year after getting sworn in as Dolton's mayor, voters recalled Tiffany Henyard Tuesday.
We listened to the community. The community has asked us, what can we do? They were uncomfortable with lack of transparency. They were uncomfortable with the spending.
Village trustee Jason House believes the referendum to recall the mayor was necessary and fair.
We are a democracy. The people have spoken, and we really are going to do everything we can to make sure that their voice is heard.
But the mayor took her fight to court and won in the lower court. This ruling by the Illinois Appellate Court days before Tuesday's election said the recall election could go on, and those votes can get counted but not certified.
So you guys put the recall on the ballot, but then a judge knocks it down.
What the suggested route to go on there was, and I say suggested because it really has not occurred in the state of Illinois. The legal premise that our attorneys were operating from, and when us as well, is that there was no precedent on how to perform a recall in the state of Illinois. And our thinking is that absent there being a precedent set, or if there's nothing that prohibits it, then it should be legal. Unfortunately, the court didn't determine it differently, and they said the suggested route to go on there was that you put the mechanism on one ballot, and then you put the recall itself on the subsequent ballot.
Yeah. Because when I was reading through it, I was like, okay, so in other words, you guys would have to have like essentially two elections. One election for the mechanism, is she going to, and then the second election to actually remove her. And by that time, she's going to be, you'll have another election. So
Absolutely.
But you live and you learn. So now you're stuck with her, right? Now you're stuck with her for the second time. So now she's in. You guys are stuck with this madness.
New at 10, making a political statement with some disco in South suburban Dolton. It's Dolton Mayor Tiffany Henyard kicking off tonight's board meeting with her rendition of the 1979 hit "Ain't No Stopping Us Now." The reason for the throwback jam? An appellate court ruling threw out a June recall vote that would have removed Henyard from office.
They want to hear from the mayor. How y'all doing? Ain't no stopping us now. No work, 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 no work. Ain't no stopping us now. Loving on the people, showing them they matter to us. We going through the fires for y'all. Ain't no stopping us now. Y'all black, beating and attacking on a black woman. Ain't no stopping us now. Y'all should be ashamed of yourselves. I am the leader.
And I gotta say, one of my friends, he sent me the article about Tiffany Henyard from Fox in Chicago, and I was like, this is kind of crazy.
Nobody knows something. Don't nobody know nothing.
Tiffany Henyard certainly isn't shy about attracting attention. Here she is starting a Dolton Village board meeting dressed like the Wesley Snipes character in the movie New Jack City, later punctuating her political points with the help of her own DJ.
Every single resident. Pay me what you owe me. Thank you, DJ.
As soon as I started doing my research, I'm like, this is totally it. How could anybody be doing any of this stuff? Then I learned about the township versus Dolton. So it seems like there's this. Now, she's part-time in both.
I'll say she's full-time as a supervisor. There's no part-time job that's going to pay you $224,000.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I was like, I don't know. But she said she's part-time in both.
For the different jobs, so Dolton pays you what as mayor? Township pays you what?
Sure. So my mayor position is $50,000, which was already there. And my township position is $224,000, which was already there. When I got sworn into either seat, it came with the salary, which everybody prior to me received.
Now, are both of those deemed full-time jobs?
Well, no, part-time.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And what was the other thing I was thinking about? It seems like she's just commingling the two, both the Thornton Township and Dolton, because my first question, and we'll talk about it when we get to it, because she actually talks about it, it's just like, why is the village of Dolton paying for her security when she's full-time at Thornton Township? That doesn't make any sense to me, right? But again, it seems like, first first thing I do want to ask is that so after she's elected mayor, she then becomes supervisor of Thornton Township. And I watched the video in which she goes to like the board meeting. They're like, "You're the new supervisor."
49. I nominate Tiffany Hanyard, Thornton Township Supervisor.
You all are making a mockery out of this for real. This is not a joke. This is not a joke. This is ridiculous.
Trustee Jones?
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez?
Yes.
Trustee Gray Everett?
Yes.
She voted yes. And she has to sign the warrant, and then she's got to take the oath in 9 minutes. Let's go. 9 minutes.
How did that all happen? Was that just some, we're just gonna make this random mayor of one of the towns the supervisor? Like how did that develop?
No, it really was the most unique of circumstances. The former supervisor, who was well loved by many, unfortunately passed.
People in the south suburbs are mourning the loss of longtime leader Frank Zuccarelli. He was a supervisor in Thornton Township, chairman of South Suburban College, and Democratic committeeman there. He's been described as a faithful and devoted leader. Zuccarelli died today after a battle with cancer.
And there's a 60-day window for that the board over there got a chance to appoint his successor. And if it was not decided within that 60 days, then it would go out into a completely different process. And I'm not as versed on what that process is, but ultimately the board would no longer have the decision-making authority over who's being appointed. So the board for 60 days essentially were divided. 2 board members wanted one person, the other 2 wanted a different person. So they clashed, and got to day 60. Not only day 60, they got to the 8, 9, 10 o'clock hour of day 60. And once they recognized at that point that they were still stuck in a stalemate, they actually began nominating other individuals that different board members were familiar with. So they nominated, and to my knowledge, it was about at least 3 or 4 other individuals nominated, but out of the 4 of them, they still could not get a majority. And then at what I'm going to call the 11th hour, one of them nominated Tiffany because they were aware of her in her capacity as mayor of Dolton. Now, surprisingly, at that time, there was already much criticism of Tiffany as the mayor. Yeah. However, she had other interactions with those board members. And based on that, her name was thrown out there. And that's why you see a lot of the chaos and how hurriedly they were going to even get her sworn in.
Yeah.
Once they got the majority vote, they said, let's hurry up and do it before the clock strikes. It was almost a Cinderella story.
She voted yes. And she has to sign the warrant, and then she's got to take the oath in 9 minutes. Let's go. 9 minutes.
Let's do this before the clock strikes. And then that way it's secured, because the important thing for many members of the township was that they wanted to make sure that they appointed somebody versus the vote going out into a different process.
So let's do this. Let's look at some clips from her interview with Roland Martin, because she doesn't do a lot of interviews, but I understand why. I would like you to respond to some of the points that she's making, because, again, I'm not there, but I do know what's been reported in the news and the documents that I've seen. So it's good to actually have you here, because she can't fool you, because you're right there. She can fool Roland Martin. Now, I got to say this. I feel for Roland, because he did absolutely no research. He had no pushback. It was like, okay. Now he has new videos now where he's now pushing back. He's like, I got to get it back to ask these questions, but it's too little too late, because he allowed her to at least spout this nonsense. So let's hear, this is the first clip, and this clip is about her security detail. And she's going to talk about how it kind of came to be and everything. So check out this clip.
So let's first deal with Dolton. So your critics say that you have a significant security detail. First of all, how large is your police department in Dolton, and what is your security detail?
So we have about 45 officers in our village. My security is warranted due to the fact of threats and things of that nature. But what people are not stating is it's in our CBA. That's our collective bargaining agreement. That's our union contract. So it comes with the seat. That's what people are not saying. I didn't make this up. I didn't just create this and say, I want security.
How many officers is it?
How many officers is what?
On security detail.
I'm not gonna say how many due to the threats on my life. So,
but if it's in your CBA,
it is in my CBA. I'm not doing anything wrong. I even went to court due to the fact of people suing me saying I cannot have a security detail, and I won.
So, can you give us some context on the numbers? What was security detail now versus what it was in the past?
Now, when we look at the budget, there's really nothing broken out that delineates security detail for the mayor. It's not spelled out. It's really an officer. But when we look at historical numbers and we look at the past, the former mayor, if he used the detail at all, it would be very minimal. A couple of hours on a specific trip, and that would be it. One officer, never more than one, and it was extremely, extremely minimal. With this administration, we see multiple officers round the clock, and they're traveling out of state with her, which to the board makes absolutely no sense. But more than that, I think because the rebuttal is that it's within the collective bargaining agreement. That's not the board's argument at all. We've never argued that she's doing anything against the bargaining agreement. Our argument is that we can't afford it.
The size and the scale.
That's the main point on there. Trustee Norwood, in one of her interviews, even commented, we just asked how much and for how long, so that we can either try to fit it into the budget or find other solutions. So when we look at historically, year over year, I go back to 2018, 2019, we've had $600,000 in preparation for this. I went back and re-looked at the numbers. 2018, I believe, was $675,000. So
now this is overtime for the police budget.
Overtime
right?
for the police,
which would capture the Go ahead. All right,
because that's where the officers are coming from. They're coming from the police department directly, and this ultimately results in overtime. Every year after 2018, from 2019, 2020, 2021, those numbers were all under 600,000, some even below 500,000.
Wow. So the overtime for all the officers in the whole year, even with the security detail, was about 600,000 at max.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now we get to 2021, which is her first year. It's a half year because she takes office in May. That year it shoots up over $700,000.
Okay, and that's for that year. So you really have about $100,000 more for that year.
Yes. However, keep in mind, I mentioned she only took office in May. So then we get to the 2022, which is her first full year, and overtime was up to 1.5, almost $1.6 million. And
what?
Well, I mean, and Fox did a great job reporting on it when they scrolled all the list of hours being paid and things like that. So when we're talking about the security detail, and you keep saying, okay, well, the collective bargaining agreement allows for it, that doesn't touch on the heart of the issue. The issue is, can the city afford it? The answer is a resounding no.
Wow.
But
so in 1 year, she used 3 years worth of overtime essentially in 1 year.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's insane.
And I'll tell you, as a board member, and as we come into the next elections, we can tell you a way that we can save $1 million just by changing the mayor. $1 million a year. That's $4 million saved.
Yeah, my God.
No other mayor had that. So
two things. It seems like also too, and people are going to make the connection that the police department are very loyal to this mayor, because if you've just increased their pay by triple, right, in overtime, that's going to make them so, and there's a lot of rumblings about the police department doing things for her bidding. Have you heard of any of that stuff, and are there any concerns with that?
We've definitely heard that the police are being told are instructed to do things. The former police chief came on Fox and acknowledged some of those things.
The manpower was just very stressed and critical to the point of almost breaking.
Last week, Collins filed a civil lawsuit against the Village of Dolton for wrongful termination, saying he was fired by the mayor without cause and without board approval because his wife is friends with some of the mayor's perceived political enemies.
And our contention is that it is illegal.
Did he do anything wrong?
No. Chief Collins, any position that he's ever been in is a policeman's policeman. He held the rank of chief, but he's a patrolman at heart.
But it is frustrating to see the officers used like that. I'm sure the officers are frustrated too, but they following orders.
And then when you see that, officers will. We did a video on our Dolton Trustees YouTube page where it showed police officers going to somebody's home to serve them termination papers. Mm-hmm. Officers are being told to go out into businesses and shut them down with no warning, no real reason.
Well, more controversy is brewing in South Suburban Dolton.
So last night, police shut down 2 popular bars. One trustee says the reason? Because they're not financially supporting Dolton's mayor, Tiffany Henyard.
I have like over 23 employees. They work from the local township. Now, end of the day, all the employees, they're going to lose their job.
It's ridiculous. We all have mouths to feed. We all have kids. They're not giving us no explanation.
On Monday, we visited both Rinky's and Pablo's to ask about allegations their licenses were being held up for political reasons. Then last evening, we broke the story that FBI agents have questioned at least a half-dozen people, including business owners, a former Dolton employee, and an elected official as part of an investigation into Mayor Henyard. Less than 2 hours after our story aired, police raided the 2 bars.
Someone seen you go in there, and then 2 hours after your story airs, that police are at both of these establishments.
Dolton trustee Tammy Brown says she believes the raids are meant to send a warning to others not to talk. And she believes there's a reason so many Dolton businesses are having trouble getting their licenses renewed.
I'm sure that they were asked to make a donation, and most likely they didn't make a donation. So you don't get a chance to stay open if you don't pay the Queen's ransom.
The officers officers have such a difficult job.
Yeah.
So I stay away from attacking or trying to say something like that, because ultimately they're doing what they're being requested to do. It's bad leadership, and I take no issue or no fault at the officers, but the way that the leadership and the instructions that they're being given, we think are not in the best interest of the residents. They're not in the best for the community. And it's really hurting everybody. We're shutting down more businesses than we're opening now.
Is in a deficit. What is the state of the city's finances?
So we are in a deficit, but it's not what everybody's claiming it to be. They're going around with false allegations of $5 million, $7 million, $8 million. It's all false. Our deficit is $2 million.
$2 million.
$2 million.
And what's your annual budget?
Our annual budget is $30 million.
$3 million? $30 million.
Yep.
Okay, so I've heard 5 million. I've heard now 7. She's saying all that's fake news. It's just 2. What say you?
Well, there's a couple of different components of it. When we're talking deficits, we're going off of our fiscal year. So it's important to note that Dolton's fiscal year ends April 30th of every year.
Okay.
So when we talked about the deficit, 2.5 million was our last fiscal year deficit. That's completed. That's in the books. So just from the previous year alone was 2.5 million in the hole.
You're in a whole 2.5 million going into this next year.
Yes, and that document I will share with you how we arrived at that number. Mm-hmm. But it's 2.5 going in the hole from the previous year. Now, when we start talking about the current year, the board, and we've documented it many times, has only received financials through September of last year. So the last financial report we had showed us that there was another $4.5 million that we were in the hole. That's strictly from May to September.
That's on top of the 2.5?
On top of the 2.5.
Oof. Oof.
So that's where the number, or where we arrived at the $7 million number. So if her statement is that we're 2 million, it's quite possible that from September until now, some things changed. Mm-hmm. But I have a couple of statements to that. One is that if it were 2 million, that would mean that we're 2 million this year And you still add that to last year's number,
Yeah.
puts us at 4.5. And also, we said it very, very calm and matter of fact. I'm not 7 million in the hole. I'm only 2 million. That's not acceptable. It's just not acceptable.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not supposed to be comfortable. And they tried to promote the narrative that governments operate in deficit, and that's just not true. Poorly managed governments run on deficits.
That's true. And for those of people who don't know, the federal government is allowed to run on a deficit because they make the money. But state and local governments do not run on deficits. They have to balance. Matter of fact, it's illegal for a state, for instance, to have deficit spending. They always have to balance their budgets, and so do local governments.
Yeah.
So
and more than that, I would say that information that she's mentioned has not been documented anywhere. So when I'm giving our numbers, we're talking through September of last year. Now, if they were to provide us with additional documentation that supports it, I'll report exactly what's in front of me.
Well, so I want to go to the source of the budget deficit, because that's her next contention. She says, hey, listen, it's not me, it's these trustees not paying bills and paying their lawyer. That's what's the source of this budget deficit. Listen to what she says, because this is crazy.
And so what led to that deficit?
So it comes from them not paying bills. So say, for instance, we have a board meeting and they say, well, we're going to pull this out, pull that out. If they continue to pull bills out, later on, what do you have? A deficit, because the bills still due. That's like us not paying our mortgage or not paying our light bill. We still owe the money at the end of the month.
When you say they, who's they?
The trustees, the board, because the board is the one that votes to pay the bills.
But do you have the resources?
Yes.
To pay the bills?
Yes.
So how's there a deficit?
Because they won't pay the bills. So it's still on our books. Until we release the check and pay the bill, we still count it as a deficit.
So you're saying, so you have the money to pay the bills.
Correct.
You're saying your fellow trustees won't pay the bills.
Correct.
Why?
I'll give you prime example, just to make me look bad.
So you got the money, and you guys just don't pay the bills just to make her look bad. That's the whole reason. Is that true? Is that accurate?
No, that's extremely inaccurate, and I think there was some very good pointed questions in there, and because those are questions we asked during the council meeting. Do we have the money in the account? Will these checks be released immediately? And we're always told the same thing. Oh, yes, they will. Yes, they will. There are specific vendors, and every meeting is virtually the same vendors. Many times it's different restaurants and first class accommodations that she's been going for that we refuse to pay. That's not going to put us in a deficit. Those things were not budgeted for, and we held it off. And then other vendors are people that similarly were not included in our budget. So we're preventing those vendors, or we're voting to not pay those vendors because they were not in the original budget. That will keep us in line with the budget. But secondly, and I think more important than that, which is as part of the smokescreen, is that I have a list of vendors that the board did approve, and these are critical services for the residents. And because the money's not there, she's instructing her staff, do not release those checks. That's where when we talked about the police cars being repossessed, the board voted to approve that in May.
So just to be clear, so what I'm hearing is that you as the board say, okay, pay all of these bills. You submit them to the mayor, go pay these. And none of these things have been paid?
Correct.
But now she's going on rolling and saying, you guys don't approve anything to get paid.
That's correct.
So usually when you have a conflict like this, there's like some documents. Here's the documents. Now, I know there was a vendor within the document. The vendor had said, hey, the board has already approved payment. What's going on, right?
Yes.
What vendor was that again? The one that in the demand letter, they said that the board had approved?
MBD Solutions. That vendor, when there's a water main break, they have to tear the streets up and go into the sidewalks. And then once the water main is repaired, they come back and they do the sidewalk repair so that way it doesn't look terrible.
Yeah.
And they're out a lot of money because they're not getting, the board approved them and they're not being paid. And I think you'll further see, because I've shared some of those with you, that those vendors will indicate, I've been calling, nobody's returning my phone calls. Nobody will respond. The reason that the calls even get to the board, those calls should never get to a board member.
That's true. Yeah,
never get to a board. But the reason it is they've exhausted every other opportunity they can. And my message to the administration when I send it to them is, this person has been approved. They should have a check already. They're contacting me. And I get the same silent treatment, I guess, for lack of a better word, on a response back. Because if the real answer was that the board is not approving it, they should respond to them and say, well, we'll pay you as soon as the board approves it.
Yes.
And then that person come. we're getting it where we've approved it. We expect that it's already paid, and we're not. And I've got about 10 or 12 of those, which makes me think there have to be many other people that haven't gone the route of notifying the board just yet. So when we talk about our financial position, this is just what we know to this date. There's really no telling how many other people are out there that just haven't even come to the surface yet.
But is the money in those accounts? Do you guys have them? Because she's saying the money's there. We got the money to pay, right? We got it.
Yeah, which is absurd. If the money is there, because that's also another matter that was brought up during the show. That information is not shared with the board. So I really am not in a position to say yes, the money is there, or no, it's not. I certainly hope the money is there. Where the board currently has a lawsuit. She mentioned all these cases were decided, which is just untrue. We have a lawsuit coming up on our inability to access government records, the statements on where we're at financially, receipts for all of the things paid so that we can make sure that they're properly paid. We had to go into court to sue for it. That's going to be coming up. I want to say March 11th is the next court date. And on the Roland Martin show, she said, we provide them all that stuff. It's there. However, when we're in court, her legal defense is that the board is not entitled to this information.
She's saying, okay, we have spent a lot of money, right? We spent all this money, but I got a $15 million grant. 6 is going to Dolton, 9 is going to the township, and the grant is, well, you know what? Let me let her explain it.
When I go get money and bring back to our community many grants, they refuse to pay things for residents. I created a roof and window program. They would not vote to pay the vendors to fix the roof and windows for our seniors and our veterans. Why? The money's there. It's in a bank account. You can see it. Why would they not pay the bill? So therefore, that program got on hold. These are things I created when I became the mayor of Dolton. But yet, people don't see your vision. It's people trying to take over government, and I won't allow it. They didn't do it prior to the other mayor having it. Why did nobody do any of the things they doing to me?
When she talks about these grants, is there this extra $5 or $6 million from a grant? Is that on the books? Did you guys get that money?
No, that money is not on the books. The $15 million, the $6 million, none of that money has been received. And also going back to my original statement of our fiscal year ends on April 30th. Mm-hmm. We have 2 more months for that money to be received. If it's not received, then that's going to mean that we're in another deficit based on a grant. And even with the grants are earmarked for specific purposes. So that money cannot just go into the bank account and be used at your discretion. Prior to getting the grant, you have to let them know we're going to spend it specifically on this, and it's going to go for this purpose, and prove that the grant money was used responsibly. So none of those, and those are questions that the board, myself, have raised, and we get no responses.
Where is this grant supposed to be from?
The state of Illinois. In the state, they did put the money in a budget, in an appropriation. Okay. And that is so that way you can know that if you do the steps necessary, you can qualify to get that money. And my belief is that they have not done the steps necessary. We never do. This administration, the mayor, does not do things according to plan. They won't show you what they're not transparent, and there's a lot of hesitancy because of that for the state and other agencies to send us the money we need.
And because now it seems like, unfortunately, she's well, I'm assuming she's at least applied for this grant. You guys haven't really gotten it as of yet, but is it her argument? Do you think her argument is that you guys should be acting as if, right? We used to call it as bad, where you say I have $100, but then when it's come to pay the check, you really don't have the $100. Somebody, this guy's supposed to give it to me, right? So is that kind of the game she's playing here? She's playing the money's on the way, but we should act as if we have it.
I think you worded it way better than I could have. That's one way of doing it. But if you'll also notice, the pattern with this administration and this mayor is a deflection, something that can kick the can down the road. So that way, once you get past, once you give them what they want, they'll keep going. And then when you look up, you're in the hole. And we can't, as a board, we can't responsibly vote for things that we don't have the money in the bank. There's no plan. And when you try to ask the questions to work with them, you get just nasty, rude, or no responses whatsoever. So now you're not believable. It's hard for us to take it until we can get documentation. We're left with no other alternative but to be firm and demand receipts and accountability.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed part 1 of the interview. In part 2, we're going to ask Jason about the spending, the travel, the charity, and all the other things associated with Dolton, like that police overtime, which again seems crazy. So if you like part 1, don't forget to like, share, subscribe to our great YouTube stuff, and be on the lookout for part 2 that should be dropping in a couple of days.